very proud to be here, and I appreciate the students for coming today, faculty, staff, friends of the college and the university. I'm very humbled to receive this award today. I can honestly say to you that as a very average college student, and some of the professors can attest to that, I never believed that or dreamed that something would come to me in this fashion. So to begin, just let me publicly thank my professors from the College of the Department of Geology, my thesis committee, Dr. Morris, Dr. Kowalis, and Dr. Paul Nixon, as well as other faculty, Dr. Ritter, and friends, many of here who are here today that I shared some of the best years of my life. And then finally, my family, who is also here. Finally, I'd like to thank Mindy, my wife and partner and eternal companion, for being the best friend for me over the last 25 years. At the time of her graduation, she was the youngest person to graduate from the prestigious BYU Department of Accountancy. And despite her own substantial individual achievements, she sacrificed much to help me get through graduate school, edit my thesis, hand draw before computers, my illustrations, and of course, raise our two children. She also spent many nights alone while I collected nearly 2 million miles of frequent flyer miles on various airlines. So the honor I received today, I share with her, because I wouldn't be able to be here today without her. How a rock-licking geologist won the heart of somebody away from all those MBAs, it's one of life's greatest mysteries. So thank you to everyone for being here today. You have all truly influenced my life, and I'm grateful for that. So we're here today to talk about some things that I've learned and how I might be able to help you in your journey through your life. So as I thought about the remarks for today, a lot of different things came into my mind. I thought, maybe I should talk technically, or maybe I should talk about some of the projects that I've worked on, or just say thank you and sit down. I'll bring a little bit of all that together, hopefully. The title of my remarks I took from the poem Invictus by William Henley, because I think so much about our life is about choosing your own destiny and making your own destiny happen, whether that's yourself as an individual or a family, or in your careers or spiritually. We're given this life to make choices, and much of the choices that we make determine the outcome of our destiny. So, it's about doing something. It's about, as the poem says, be the captain of your soul and be the master of your fate. And all the education that you'll receive and your family support should be able to help you to do that. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is about how I have, incorporated those thoughts into my own life and my own career. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the projects that I've been involved in throughout my career, where the companies that I worked for and the people that I worked with had to be the master of their own fate, because the oil and gas business is like many businesses, is a commercial business. And it's often been said that it's easier to find oil and gas than it is to make money at it. And so mastering your fate comes down to working collaborative with people and making difficult projects economic at the end of the day. And then the last section of my remarks, I'll focus on some things that I've learned that perhaps could help you in your careers. So let's start a little bit about my experiences, my personal experiences. For most of my life, I've really wanted to work in the oil and gas industry, as Tom mentioned. My father worked for Mobil Oil Corporation and was an executive with Amerada Hess Corporation for more than 30 years. As Tom mentioned, I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, but lived in New York. I lived in Houston, Texas, and Tulsa, Oklahoma throughout my life. All places that had a very strong oil industry influence. Up on the board, there's a graph of oil price, both in real terms and adjusted inflation terms. As a formative teenager living in Tulsa in the early 1980s, Tulsa was a very vibrant, sophisticated, and wealthy city. It truly was the oil capital of the world, and was experiencing a boom that hadn't ever been seen before, as you can see by the graph. Then came 1986, and oil prices dropped precipitously. Hiring of geologists at most large companies virtually came to a halt. And for about the next decade, oil prices traded at about $20 a barrel or less. Oil company stocks were not in favor. A degree in the geoscientists and a career in the oil industry seemed like a bit of a foolish proposition. In 1986, I was serving a mission in Argentina and wouldn't return until 1988. And upon returning, I found a department that had contracted significantly. Many of my friends and colleagues who I had started the introductory geology classes, they had left. They'd gone on to pursue other things in the hopes of finding good employment. And I myself even considered heading into law, which would have been a big mistake for me. And one of my good friends is shaking his head, so I agree with him. It was a shock. It was a very different environment that I came back to, and even those that were within the department were focused on hydrogeology, or water fields, or teaching. Problem was I had oil in my blood from my family, and that's really what I was passionate about. And I believed that that they could offer me a great career. First of all, it's a very science-driven, very technologically driven industry, and really is one of the lifebloods of our global economy. It has the ability, the industry and oil really has the ability to change the standard of a living for many people, and I'll share a few examples of that in a minute. Politics, policies, and unfortunately even hostilities are often driven by access to the commodity. And it still remains the cheapest, safest, most commercially accessible form of energy on a BTU basis. Until that changes, it will remain the most coveted form of energy. There's certainly consequences to its use, but I believe that we as scientists can work through that and simultaneously look for alternative energies as well as continue the search for traditional forms of hydrocarbons. So I had this background and this passion and this drive to find a career in the industry, despite the fact that I wasn't going to a University of Texas or a University of Oklahoma or Rice University, which were the traditional places to go to school. Along the way, I was encouraged by a handful of people, Dr. Morris, of course, Dr. Ritter, Paul Nixon, who was here at the time, all of whom had spent time in the industry and gave me the motivation to continue on. And then I was very fortunate, a lone recruiter from Arco Oil and Gas came to BYU looking for summer interns. And I think he saw, more than anything, he saw my passion for the industry and my desire to work in the industry. It certainly wasn't my grades that attracted him to me. And from there, I took a job at Arco as a summer geologist working in Alaska. And coincidentally got to know some very important people and influential people at a small and relatively unknown oil company at that time called Anadarko Petroleum, which is now one of the largest independents in the country. So I guess the rest is history from there. But the first message I'd like to leave with you about mastering your fate is find something that you're passionate about. Take control of your destiny. Don't be detracted by others. Pursue your passions and your interests and surround yourself with people that support you, and you'll find your way through life. Just a quick slide there. I kind of touched on a lot of that, the importance of hydrocarbons in our daily lives. So indeed, I've been blessed with a nice career, and I've been blessed to work for great companies that have provided me great opportunities. And I've been up with the opportunity to work with many people that I've shared successes and failures with. So what I'd like to do at this point is share with you a couple of projects that I've worked on throughout my career. And as I mentioned earlier, this ties into the whole theme of controlling your destiny and mastering your fate, in that each and every one of these projects that I'm going to talk to you about for the next 10 to 15 minutes, people had to work hard. They had to do something to make these projects successful. And at the end of the day, these projects have blessed and improved the lives of many, many people. So the first one I'll share you with is in East Texas. It's located in Freestone County, Texas, which is about 150 miles north of Houston. The field was discovered in 1996, and it's a Jurassic Age sandstone for those geologists in the room, and is one of the major producing gas fields and has been for some time in Texas. The interesting thing about it is I was part of an exploration team whose task was trying to find a new core area for Anadarko to grow. And by core, a multi-rig program, big capital dollars, and the potential to grow production up to a significant level. At the time, people weren't talking about shale gas or tight gas or shale oil or fracking or any of those things that you talk about today. We were actually exploring for traditional carbonate reefs, buildups, and you could see them on the seismic data. They'd build up and you drill it. They'd be very, very prolific wells, but they were hard to find, and you had to have very good science and technology. As we were drilling these wells, we would always find this little sandstone that always had natural gas charge, and every time you drill through it, bam, you'd get a big slug of gas. And problem was, at the time, gas prices were about $1 a thousand cubic feet, which is really low. And we were searching for oil in these reefs. Didn't have a lot of success looking for the conventional reefs. So we had a meeting. I remember very, very vividly a meeting that we had one day where we were talking about this sandstone, and the geologic team of which I was part of, we had started making maps on this sandstone, and you could see that it would extend for great distances all the way up into Louisiana. And everywhere it had gas, right? Today we'd call that a basin-centered gas accumulation, where there's no conventional water drive to the reservoir. Back then we just wow, just gas everywhere. Really couldn't explain it. But the problem was gas prices were low, and well costs were high. It was about $6 to $7 million to drill one of these wells. And so we sat in a room and we said, look, this could be a very significant thing for our company. It could be a very significant thing for the communities that we were operating in. We need to figure out a way to make this work. And we said, well, how do we do it? And the answer was we have to drive well costs down significantly in order to have any chance of making this project economically viable. And that's what we did. We worked hard together. We worked with consortiums with the drilling companies. We put long-term contracts in with the rig companies and all the service companies that were helping us in this area. And as rigs, as cost for the opportunity to drill the wells came down. Oil, gas prices tended to rise, and for the next decade, this play was producing close to 700-800 million cubic feet of gas for Anadarko, and was a major cash flow generator for the company. So, point to take away is collaboration, good technology, and good focusing on how to make things work. This field has had a huge impact. They've had a huge impact, as you can see from the statistics. I won't spend a lot of time on them. But when I first went to the little town of Fairfield, Texas, with the first well we drilled in this play, it was a little motel and a barbecue shack and a gas station. And you drive through Fairfield today, and there's massive subdivisions, and there's schools, and the economic boom that has transformed that whole area has been of benefit to many people. All right, moving on. The next area I wanted to talk to you about mastering your fate and working together to bring good ideas and good science and technology together is in Alaska. What you're looking at here is the Alpine field on the north slope of Alaska. And at the time of its discovery in 1996, or 94, excuse me, it was the largest onshore conventional discovery in North America in the last 20 years. Well over 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent in place, and recoverable oil of between 400 and 500 million barrels of oil. A very significant project. What you're seeing there is the entire surface facilities. Now that covers about 100 acres on the surface, and the field development area is over 25,000 acres in the subsurface. And in order to make this thing work, the traditional source rock for the north slope is the Triassic Shublik Formation, which sourced the Prudhoe Bay field and the other large fields on the north slope. This was actually a different source rock. And it took some really good geoscientists and engineers to figure out that you weren't dealing with the same rocks, the same source rocks on the north slope here than you were in the traditional oil field. So it was a paradigm shift. And that led to the exploration, which ultimately resulted in the discovery of the Alpine field. This was one of the first areas where there were long reach laterals. They were on the order of 3,000 to 4,000 feet. That doesn't sound like much these days, where we're typically drilling 15,000, 20,000 foot laterals to develop reservoirs. But here it was a major technological breakthrough. This is a completely isolated facility. There are no permanent roads given the environmental sensitivity of the North Slope. Okay? It's serviced by an airstrip in the summer, and in the wintertime it's serviced by a 25-mile ice road that's built every winter that costs $1 million per mile to build every winter, $25 million. You build the ice road out to it, you resupply it, the ice road melts away in the spring. The ice road actually goes out over to the Beaufort Sea, over onto the ice, and comes back around into the facility. Everything's there, all the wells, these are all the wells. Excuse me. All the wells are lined up there. There's about 100 plus wells, and those wells are drilled down, and the horizontal wells go out and access the reservoir. These are all the processing facilities here for oil and gas. Those are the pipelines that take the oil and the oil and the water back for processing. The gas is reinjected into the reservoir. These are living facilities here. There's a bowling alley and a movie theater in that thing right there. So it's fully self-sufficient. Again, a great technical work. And the only thing that made this work was a focus, a collaboration, and a focus on technology, utilizing new technology, and people working together. Again, just a quick slide on the impact. Again, huge impacts to both the state of Alaska and the local Native communities. Okay, the third area I'll mention is the Independence Hub, which is a floating production facility in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The eastern Gulf of Mexico had been under moratoria for many years. No oil and gas exploration has opened up in the to late 90s for oil and gas exploration. And a number of companies went out and explored the area and found mostly natural gas and relatively small fields. So the fields were not large enough to support their own facility. And so the industry got together with my company at the time, Anadarko, other companies, Devon and a few others got together and decided with some pipeline support, with some Phillies support, that we were going to build a consortium to put together a floating production facility in the eastern Gulf of Mexico to develop all the fields together in one unit. At the time of it came on first production in 2007 at 1 billion cubic feet of gas per day. And at the time, it was producing 10% of all the natural gas in the Gulf of Mexico and about 2% of all the natural gas produced in the United States. All right? So a significant facility, a significant economic achievement. Costs about $2 billion to put this thing out in the Gulf of Mexico. And it's still producing natural gas today that we use to generate these lights and heat our homes and cook our food. The last area I'll touch on is an area that I very loved to visit when I was at Talisman Energy. And it's in Iraqi Kurdistan. And this is still developing. Kurdistan, as you may know, is a tremendously ethnically historical region of the world in northern Iraq. It's bordered on the north by Turkey and Armenia, and Iran's to the east, and it's part of Iraq. Erbil, the capital of Kurdistan, is a 6,000-year-old city. And you go there, and there are documents of Abraham, literally documents of Abraham walking around. For the biblical scholars in the room, I mean, this is the area of the Tower of Babel. This is Nineveh. This is where the three wise men came from. This is a tremendously historical place. Unfortunately, it's also been an area of significant turmoil throughout its history. And even as we speak, it's under siege again. It was the area that was gassed by Saddam Hussein prior to the Second Gulf War. It's also an area of tremendous oil and gas potential. You can see in the background of that bottom photo, those are the Zagros Mountains. So it's in the Foreland Basin of the Zagros, which is, one of the premier oil-producing regions of the world. Following the Gulf War, international oil companies, I worked for a Canadian company at the time, were very opportunistic and went in and picked up acreage in this area, and our company had 3 blocks. And we drilled 2 of them, and they resulted in two very large oil and gas discoveries listed there. Those are a few of a number of discoveries that other companies have made in the region. But the discoveries here have the ability to transform Kurdistan forever. The amount of job creation, the amount of royalties and taxes that are being generated through the ultimate production here will have a huge impact on the region should security situations stabilize. Our company, Talisman, we were operating in the southern port of the region, exactly where some of the greatest atrocities that I described had occurred. And Talisman took a leading role in rebuilding schools and playgrounds and mosques and other very historical areas that had been destroyed. And that's the kind of thing that I'm proud of in the career which I work in. To summarize, I wanted to share with you 4 examples again where technical collaboration, good science, good technology has led to new discoveries of resources that benefit. And all 4 of them had these common themes together. They had good science and engineering work. They all included the application of new or improved technology. In the East Texas play, it was the fracture technology. You needed the ability to frack these wells to produce them. On the North Slope, it was the ability to have a very small footprint to develop a very large reservoir. In the eastern Gulf of Mexico, as I mentioned, it was the ability of companies to bring technology to tie back various oil and gas fields to a single facility. And then in Kurdistan, it's working with the local governments to develop these resources. Collaboration is very important, and certainly a willingness to take risks, because this is a risk-based business. To conclude my remarks, it wouldn't be an alumni talk without offering some advice to you. So after 20 years of working as a scientist in this industry, there are a few things that I've learned along the way. And so I'll give you a list of some things to think about as you think about your careers in science and think about what you can do to make the world a better place. First of all, the first thing I'll say is find something you love to do and be passionate about it. You know, my passion was the energy industry, and geology was that foundation. So as I was thinking about how to pursue my passion, geology was first and foremost with that. Even when I was considering law school, it was intended to be oil and gas law. For your passion in maybe physics or chemistry or mathematics or astronomy or engineering or medicine, it really doesn't matter. If you love it and have passion and are passionate about it, people will notice. And they will notice that more than where you went to school, what your grades were, where you come from, what your background is. They'll notice that passion. And I think that was particularly true in my instance. Second, work hard and don't feel entitled. A strong work ethic will serve you well. There is somewhat of an unhealthy attitude of entitlement, I think, these days. People want everything and they want it now. My advice to you is to be patient and work hard, enjoy the journey, build the experience, put in the time to develop the skills and the knowledge and the perspective, and be careful what you ask for. Because you just might get it. And I can tell you, I've seen it in my career, that one of the biggest detriments to one's career is being placed in an opportunity or position too soon. It's very hard to recover from failing in a position of significant responsibility. So again, work hard, build the skills you need. Remember, no matter where you are, the next job opportunity you have is generally based on how you perform in your current job. Number 3, be willing to take risk. There is a lot of joy in learning in the journey. And there are many rewards out there for people who have competent skills and are willing to take a bit of risk. Be open-minded, accept opportunities that may stretch you or ask you to step away from your comfort zone. I've been very fortunate in my career on a number of occasions to step outside of geology for a period of time. While I was chief geoscientist at Anadarko, that was really a human relations job. It was all about people. It was about recruiting, it was about hiring people, it was about transferring people, it was about dealing with people's issues. Even though my title was chief geoscientist, I didn't do much geology. It was more people related. When I was in corporate and strategic planning, that was about the commercial side of the business. It had nothing to do with geology. When I was there were on 2 occasions I was responsible for oil and gas producing facilities, and that was all engineering. Probably more engineering than anybody would like, but it was a great opportunity for me. And the point is that all these roles and experiences round you out as an individual, and it's like putting different tools in your toolbox that further down the road you can pull those tools out and work with them. So be willing to take the risk. You'll always have your BYU education. You'll always have your previous experience. You'll always have the gospel in the church, and hopefully you'll have the strong support of your family to rely on no matter what you're working on. Fourth, prepare for setbacks and challenges, because I'll tell you they'll come. They'll come a lot. And just like life, the challenges will come in the form of change and difficult working situations, professional failures, career path disappointments, all of the above, job insecurity, all of the above. So prepare yourself for the challenges and don't let them either change who you are as a person or detract from your goals. Endure and persevere the challenges with honor and dignity, and they will pass, and you'll soon find yourself back on whatever track you have. As in life, these are periods where you need to stay closest to the Lord and to your family. They are the times for you to become refined and prepared for what lies ahead. There's a beautiful little book called by Spencer Johnson entitled "Who Moved My Cheese?" And if you haven't read the book, I suggest you go buy it. It'll take you about a half a day to read. Promise, it's a great book. And in metaphor, the book describes two mice and two little people who have to deal with a bunch of change and setback and disappointments and challenges. And the one that accepts it, moves forward, ends up finding the greatest happiness. In fact, finds the new cheese, which is better than the cheese that they had before. Go read the book. It's great. Number 5, continually reinvent yourself. The world, my experience in the world and in business is extremely dynamic and it changes very, very rapidly. My experience has taught me that you really need to manage your career in 5 to 7 year increments. That's what I've found. And don't believe for 1 minute that the skills that got you to one point are going to be the same skills that get you to the next point, because those skills may be obsolete. You need to learn to adapt and develop those new skills and position yourself to be attractive in a world that's changing. Number 6, particularly for the scientists, okay, learn to talk commercial. With very few exceptions, most of you will be working in your careers in some entity that exists for the sole purpose of creating some sort of value, okay? Whether that's a publicly traded company that exists to create value for shareholders, whether that's a research company that exists to develop commercially viable advancements for government or industry or medicine or science, or even in a teaching institution that exists to attract and train the brightest individuals. At the end of the day, much of what we do is about creating value. So it's imperative to you, for scientists, to learn to communicate the language of finance and economics. You have to understand how your work influences the decisions that lead to sound business strategy and the creation of value. I can promise you those scientists that embrace and learn and develop those skills will find the greatest opportunities in whatever field you go into. Number 7, be humble and grateful. I like to call humility and gratitude the twin sisters of greatness. Every person I've ever met in my life that I hold in the highest regard exhibits these two virtues. And because of that, they're very hard to find in the world. There are a lot of really, really good people in the world, but there are really few great people. And I think the people that exhibit these two virtues are those. I suspect everybody in this room will be successful in your careers because you're smart, you're well educated, you're honest, you're hardworking, and you're very focused. These virtues will make you a really, really good person and a really, really good employee. Humility and gratitude will make you a great person. Number 8, look for opportunities to serve others. Service, is a fuel for your soul. It energizes and gives your life added meaning and joy. As members of the church, we are presented with opportunity to serve each other, and we embrace it on a daily basis as part of our culture. However, opportunities to serve others are present every single day, inside and outside of our church callings. So I encourage you to take that spirit of service that naturally exists within every Latter-day Saint and integrate it into your daily life as a professional. Number 9, don't neglect your family. Learn to balance your work and family life. Now, okay, we're at the end. I'm going to wrap up here in about a minute, and I'm sure you're probably tired. But if you remember one thing, okay, I think the single most important thing you can do to advance your career is create a stable and healthy family life. Okay? I've seen it time and time again in my career that instability in family life impacts performance at work. It impacts the opportunities that you'll be presented for growth. Work demands can be very high and it can be stressful. However, do your best to allocate the sufficient time needed to meet the needs of your family. There's no magic bullet here. Every family is different, every marriage is different, every child is different. The key is to learning how to manage your time effectively and clearly understand the needs of your wife and your children, or your spouse and your children. Learn when it's appropriate to focus on work and other things. And finally, the last and probably most important piece of advice I can leave with you regarding your career and your future and in terms of grabbing hold of your fate is have faith and trust in the Lord. I can testify to you that the Lord guides our lives. Even when it appears we have made bad decisions or wrong decisions, He's there guiding us. And I can tell you that because I've experienced it in my own life. He doesn't want any of us to fail. He wants us to hear it. He wants us to make choices so that we can grow and develop and be there when we make mistakes. And I know this because I've seen it. You need to have faith that He has the ability to pick you up when you're down. Have faith that He will forgive you. Have faith that He'll bless and strengthen you and your family as you pursue righteous endeavors to the best of your ability. Again, I'm standing here in front of you today having a wonderful journey thus far, which I hope isn't over. I'm still pretty young, because of His guidance in my life and the blessings that He has offered myself and my family. So, friends, family, college, university, thank you for this wonderfully nice honor. I'm very proud to represent the university and the College of Physical and Mathematical Sciences as their distinguished alumni for this year. Rise and shout, Cougars. Go forth and serve and be the master of your fate. Thank you.